My name is Nancy Thames. I am a lifelong contactee with interdimensional beings and extraterrestrials. And most of my experiences, or all of them pretty much, are positive. There were times that I was scared. That's just a normal. Anybody's, when you come across uh, a being that is of higher consciousness than you and has a different frequency. And for me, it's never been, my fear was never about what they look like. For me, it is the frequency exchange. We being humans are at a very low frequency. And when you are face to face with an interdimensional or an extraterrestrial, they are of a higher frequency, which means they come from a higher dimension.
To a Broaderlands podcast. The opinions expressed on Broaderlands podcasts are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlands podcast. Nancy, welcome to Broaderlands podcast. It's an honor to have you on, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm very proud to be here. I know that I think I reached out to you, and you were very generous to have me on. I it's important to me to get my message out. This is a soul mission for me. I finally looked within, and I wanted to know the Nancy Thames within, not the Nancy Thames that the world around me has programmed me to be, which they've done to all of us, and it wasn't our fault. That's just because we grew up in this generation and with our society, we were programmed, we were taught certain things in school, et cetera, et cetera. So, now, I'm thankful to the interdimensionals and extraterrestrials because for the one time in my life, I finally know who I am, why I chose to come to Earth, my purpose here. And everything makes sense now, the good, the bad. I'm just like any other human being. I've had as many or more possibly bad things happen in my life as good, but they all served a purpose. It was a learning process. And I think that's part of what we're all going to learn through this, our evolution, our ascension, is that our past is the past and it's who we are now, and figuring out and looking within and understanding who we are. And it's this decisions we make from this moment on with higher intelligence is what matters. So my name is Nancy Thames. I am a lifelong contactee with interdimensional beings and extraterrestrials. And most of my experiences, or all of them pretty much, are positive. There were times that I was scared. That's just a normal. Anybody's, when you come across uh, a being that is of higher consciousness than you and has a different frequency. And for me, it's never been, my fear was never about what they look like. For me, it is the frequency exchange. We being humans are at a very low frequency. And when you are face to face with an interdimensional or an extraterrestrial, they are of a higher frequency, which means they come from a higher dimension. So when your body and your brain feels this, your brain is not used to this, and it's like our brain reflects back into our older creation days when we were walking around when we were created and everything in the world around us was a predator. So it's kind of like that same thing kicks in, and it's like fear or flight. You're either going to stand there and fight and try to get yourself out, or you're going to try to run and hide. So this is perfectly normal. And I certainly experienced it, but it wasn't, my fear did not, like I said, did not come from there. It was something that I personally had to figure out on my own. So when I was little, they would always send 3 grays to come and get me. And these grays were not gray. They are reddish brown, and they are about 4 foot, almost 5 foot tall. And one of them is a female. And I consider her like a guardian or a nanny or uh, I've even referred to her as a mother, but that's really not a good term because she was never my mother and has never been my mother. But I do think that she was with me as a guardian in my previous life before ever coming to Earth. I'm pretty positive of that. So I do not have a name for her. We do not exchange names. Um, I have great love for her. And when I was little, when they would come to get me, it was fun. It was playful. I looked forward to it. It did not scare me. They made it fun. And even if I was a little sad or something, what they would do if they would pull something from my mind, like if I had been reading or coloring in a coloring book or reading something, and they would pull the image from my mind, and they could actually change the scenery around me. They could even project like a character, from the book or whatever, and just make it very playful. And this is really hard to understand, and a lot of people want to call it a hologram. I don't think that it's a hologram. Hologram is a human way of trying to understand something that is a billion years ahead of us. But what they're able to do is they can change their image to look like something else. Say, if I'd been coloring Donald Duck, they could change, and what I would see would be Donald Duck. But that doesn't mean that they changed into Donald Duck. That's just what I saw. So what they're able to do is go in your consciousness and put that in there. And also, so as I got a little bit older, I started to pay more attention to the procedures of them coming and what, how we were going out, because I was going to school as I got older, of course. And, from science classes and all things like that, it was telling me the way that they were leading me out through the ceiling, the way they were taking me like through a door or through a window wasn't physically, humans weren't capable of doing these things. So it was very, very confusing. And I can remember waking up, and the female gray would be running a scan type device or using her higher consciousness, and it would feel like it was a vibrational feeling from head to toe to head. And it wasn't something or anything touching my body. It was simply, what she was doing was she was taking my human frequency, elevating it to her frequency. And then as I would start to raise or lift up off the bed, or if I was standing, lift up in the air, then she would simply take my hand, and then we would travel up through the ceiling. And I can remember going up through the ceiling and looking around and seeing the insulation and seeing boxes that my parents, for Christmas ornaments, Christmas trees, all these type things sitting around in the attic. And I'm thinking to her, how is this possible? And she would never answer me. And she really never really answered a lot of questions like that. And to be honest, when I was very young, I didn't. It was as I got older is when I started to ask more questions. But once she gets me on craft, I don't see her anymore. Her and her 2 companions, they always travel in threes. So their job is done. They basically do the legwork for the interdimensionals and the tall grays. And they were created that she is a hybrid designed by the interdimensionals and tall grays, and that her DNA has been tweaked so she can come back and forth and do their legwork. And she's created to handle the density of Earth. extraterrestrials and interdimensionals aren't really compatible with our density and, our dimension. So they created a being that could do this. So once I'm on craft, I am around interdimensionals that are about 8 foot tall, and they have some human-like features, but they are not human. They are kind of a luminescent, whitish looking. A lot of people might even say that they're like shiny, shiny ones, kind of like that. And that's because they're of a higher dimension than regular extraterrestrials. And one way they defined it to me was that if you and I were to be teleported back in the days of biblical times, with our consciousness being at the level that we are at right now compared to what they were back in biblical days, we would appear to those people, you and I would appear as shiny ones to them because we're of a higher frequency than they all were at that time. So, and that was their way of explaining to me why they look different, because extraterrestrials are more of a physical, solid looking beings, and they are all biological. Even the hybrid that was designed she is biological. They all have souls, and they all believe in a creator source. So the other on this ship, which is a mother ship, is a very large ship. And one thing very strange about that is, as my female gray is taking me towards craft, when I look at it, it looks about half the size of a football field. But the minute I step in, it turns into a humongous, it is like walking into a new dimension. It's huge. So there are other beings around that work with the interdimensionals. There are the tall grays. I have met some reptilians. I have met aquatic beings, and I have met hominoids, which are probably Nordics or Palladians. I don't really know the difference between them. I know that there's different ones, and some look similar, but none of them look just alike. And there's some other beings that I have met that we really don't even know about down here. So, and when I'm going up there back and forth, I'm having face-to-face contact. I'm having physical contact where I'm touching the hands and I'm interacting with them. And the ones that I have felt, especially the female gray, because she holds my hand to carry me up. And when she's holding my hand, I take my hand and feel the temperature of her skin. I take my hand to see what it feels like. And she knows what I'm doing. She can read everything in my mind. So, and she doesn't mind, because I've learned to be unafraid. Before I learned and got myself to the level of not being afraid, what she would do, because they're telepathic and they can read every bit of our emotions and feelings. So if she sensed, or she did, once she sensed, we'll put it that way, once she sensed I was having anxiety or fear, these are not emotions that they have in their reality. They do not like them because they don't know what to do with the, fear, people crying and people upset. They don't know how to handle that. So what they'll do, and I believe this happens to everyone unless they're consciously able to not have the fear, they will tap you out and put you in a subdued, trance-like state, and you're fully functional. You walk and move, but the problem with it is that when you return back, when you go back to reflect on it, you realize this is where I think people have their missing time, or people have fragmented, missing pieces of memory. For me, it's like I have bits and pieces fragmented. So And there's other times that I've, certainly had missing time, and I'm sure they had their reasons for that. So I've learned that when they do these type things, it's not to be cruel or inhumane or ugly or anything of this nature. It's simply they're here to see someone like me. I consider myself a contactee, and they're here to see me, for one, to check on my well-being. Okay. They also want to check on my mental stability, my mental health, because a lot of people that have these experiences really have a hard time dealing with it. They end up, they get diagnosed as being mentally unstable, and a lot of them become that way because either it's too much for them to handle, or they just, I don't know. There's different reasons for it, but so they're checking on that, and they're checking on my physical health, and they will. In my case, they have worked on me and fixed things. They've worked on my kidney. They've done different things, and they want to know, how I am evolving as my spiritual growth, and where we're headed, what my frequency is, although I realize that my frequency and my awareness is higher than other humans because of my experiences with them, but it also is a reflection of the world around me, and they can kind of understand what the populace of humanity is. And I'm sure there's many others like me, and we're all for that purpose. And we're also here to raise people's frequency and clear up misinformation and help people to understand how to raise their frequency. So it is, my experiences, just like in age, have evolved and changed. And I do not know everything, and I don't pretend to know everything. And every day is a learning experience. That's the whole purpose of being here on Earth. And I feel like they give me more and more information, but they're allowing my brain to absorb it in a fashion that is healthy for me. So,
Yeah, thank
yeah,
you, and I appreciate that about you.
yeah,
You're quick to say you don't know everything, and I think that's humility, and I really appreciate that.
yeah,
I want to go back to something because I think this is an important point to address. You said you're a lifelong contactee. You're not a
yes.
lifelong abductee. What's the difference, and why do you use that term instead of being abducted?
Well, when I was 30 years old and I witnessed my two sons being taken visually, consciously, what I assume was their first time, which it probably wasn't, but it was a time where they wanted me to witness it. And at the time, I did not understand it at all. My awareness was nowhere where it is now. So I felt their presence. I have the ability to know even before they materialize in a room that they are coming. I feel it. I feel their frequency. So when I felt it, I raise up in the bed and I start looking around for them. And then three grays materialize at the foot of the bed. And I'm over in one bed with an ex-husband, and my children are at the bed next to us. We're on a vacation, Key West in Florida, at a Marriott. We're on a family vacation. And so when the gray, he's about 3 foot tall, and they're wearing robes and has very high collars. And one of them, when he sees me sitting up in the bed, he approaches me and takes his hand and starts to press me down on this side and telepathically tells me, this is not about you. And so as I get down and lay down, and I realized what he said, and then I saw them walking towards my children's bed, I tried to speak, I tried to move, and they had me in a sleep paralysis.
Wow.
So I was very upset, very upset. So I laid there just like this and saw them collect my children and then walk out. And as they were leaving, I black out. And then I didn't wake up till the next morning. And the first thing I did was look over and see that my two sons were safely in their bed. And when we went to breakfast, I asked them if they had anything they'd like to share or talk about, if any dreams or anything at all. And they just no, so they had no recall of any of it at all. So I left it alone because I know that that happens quite often. So, there was no point in getting them scared over. So what I did was when I finally got back home from this little vacation, I sat down and meditated, and I asked them to come and get me and to please. There's things that I need to know. I want to know why this is happening to me, why this is happening to my children. What is the purpose? What does it mean? So they did not come immediately. I am not one of these people that claims that they can summon them down or, I'm just a, plain old mother. And so they came, but not went immediately. They came on their time when they were ready. And when they did, they sent this, it's always the same three, the female gray, and she came and got me and led me to a craft. And when I got on craft, she took me before a group of beings that she called, and they called themselves the elders. And these were interdimensional beings. And there was like a big U shape. And there were many of them. I did not count. They did not all look alike. They looked like they kind of represented different fractions of the cosmic realm. I really don't know. So, and I asked them, why is this happening to me? What does this mean? And they explained to me that before being born as a human being, I had made an agreement to come here and be here at this specific time for humanity, to be part of a waking up stage for humanity. And they told me that as I got older, that I would understand more and they would give me more information. And that's really all I needed to know at that time. And then the only other thing they did was, and I don't know if I've even mentioned this before, but they told me, but you can look and see, I have drawings and writings about this on my website. And they told me to take herbs, that plants and herbs were put here on earth to take care of us as far as our health and well-being. So, I started buying like hundreds and hundreds of different herbs for every little thing, and a big, huge herb Bible. And everybody laughed at me, but that's what they told me to do. And they also told me for myself, and I'm not saying this goes for anyone else, but for me, they told me to always trust and choose the color blue. Why and what it meant, I don't know, but they told me. And every time I make a choice, I usually choose blue. So, but at the end of when they were telling me that I had made these choices, they could see that I was like shaking my head, and I was like, because I don't remember any of that. I don't recall any of that at all. So they opened up a vision to me. And in the vision, I actually saw myself sitting and them telling me it's time for your human experience, and them walking me along and getting me prepared. And it was like my soul essence went into my mother and into a fetus within her. And they told me that when I have my human experience and I'm alive, that I would not remember any of this again. They would be coming to visit me and remind me and help me to remember my purpose and my reasons for this. So at the time they told me that, I listened. I understood what they said, but I still, at that point, all I knew is that I'm here on earth. This is my life. And as far as I knew, when we die, we die. That's it. It's over. Ball game's over. And so that's all I knew at the time, because that's the way I was, my family, that's the way we were raised, and that's what I was told. So, so I suppressed all this. I had to, because I was I had two little boys. I was in a marriage and it was failing. And, and I had already I had two failed marriages, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of different reasons, but this did not help. Being a contactee did not help in keeping me in a state of confusion quite a bit. It is not an easy process whatsoever. And you'll find that I grew up in Tennessee, and this is a Bible Belt. And these things are considered demonic in where the areas where I was growing up. So even when I was little, when I would run into the bedroom and tell my parents there's little beings in my room, they would say, "What a dream, go back to bed." They brush it off. They thought it was like cute and funny, or, like people think that their child has an imaginary friend, or, kids come up with some creative things. So they brushed it off. But when I got older, elementary age, and that it wasn't cute or funny anymore. And they just point blank told me, "You cannot talk about this kind of stuff. You cannot talk about it with relatives, school, Girl Scouts, your basketball team, or anything. You cannot talk about these things. They put people in mental institutions for talking about these things, and other people think it's demonic." So I learned very quickly, you cannot talk about these things. So I just kept my mouth shut and kept it all suppressed within. And it was not easy, but I did it. And I'm sure that the interdimensionals and extraterrestrials, helped me, probably in a lot of ways I don't even remember, but I'm pretty sure they did. So now, well, so it just continued on through my life, all kinds of experiences. And the more that I understood it, I realized the more consciousness, more awake time I have. So I started working on that, and when before they would even materialize in the room, when I felt that they were coming, I would prepare myself and remind myself, I've done this before. I know what it is. This is not fear I'm feeling. This is, and I realized it's their frequency. It's their frequency. And they can't help that. I can't help how I feel. So I just had to get myself and mentally prepare myself to understand what was happening to me. And kind of like what I did was say, flow through the experience, meaning don't run, don't back out, don't freak out, just flow with it, and it didn't, the first couple of times I tried it, it didn't work, but eventually it did. So that way I could spend more conscious time and have more communication and learn more things. So that was instrumental as far as my experiences. And then the next big thing, other than my experiences, that really happened that was profound was a little over 2 years ago, they gave me a Kundalini awakening. And when that happened, that changed everything. Everything. So basically, what they did, I was having a problem understanding where my downloads, the information they were sending me, I was having a problem of trying to understand, where am I getting this information from? I was questioning myself. So they jumped my little level of consciousness and just, said, we're going to do this for you. And they also did this for my son, not together and not at the same time. It happened to him on a hiking trip out in the woods. For me, I was asleep in the bed. So when it happened to me, my body came up forward and I was sitting up in the bed and my face was looking up, and I felt like surges of energy go through me from my head all the way down to the lower trunk of my body and then go back out. And then my body would fall back. And this happened 3 consecutive times in the same fashion. And then after that, it was like a strange sensation of like being in a roller coaster. And then one minute I'm like walking through my bedroom closet, then the bedroom closet turns into a craft. And then I'm all of a sudden, I find myself sitting in a room, which appeared to me like a whole group of human beings sitting in a round circle. And I sit down in a chair and everybody's looking at me to say something, but I didn't say anything. All I was thinking at that time was, how do I get home? Because I really didn't understand what the Kundalini was. I didn't know if I had died. I didn't know what this was. I had nothing like this had ever happened to me before. And so I ended up finally just waking up the next day, and I didn't tell anybody about it for a long time because I didn't understand it at all. And it was later when I did have an experience with them, and I asked them, I said, what happened to me? And they said, what do you think it was? And I said, a Kundalini awakening. And they said, yes. And then they explained to me that I have a human consciousness and a extraterrestrial consciousness. So that confirmed the story of what they had told me when I was 30, only it didn't register with me. I wasn't interdimensional before I came to Earth, and I made a choice to come here and help humanity. I come from a group of interdimensionals, and that is their sole purpose, is they go around looking for beings throughout universes and galaxies. And when they see that they're reaching a level of ascension, they are invited into the cosmic realm and walk through the process. So that's what my sons and I are. We are part of the interdimensionals. So, and they explained to me that by opening, they opened my subconscious up into my human consciousness so that I would quit questioning my information and downloads. And later on, my son and I were just chatting, and I told him what happened to me. And he said, Mom, that happened to me too. So, and I think they did that intentionally because we need each other to, we don't know everything, we do know a lot, but we don't know everything. And our lives are changing every single day, just like any other human beings. And we're very thankful that we have each other to, they will not let us have our experiences at the same time. We have been in the same cabin, and I have seen, he has 3 different extraterrestrials that come for him. So he's attached to a different guardian or whatever I don't know what he calls his or anything, but they're separate. And when they come for him, and we were just recently in Mexico at a cabin together, and I woke up because I felt that extraterrestrials were coming, and I looked up and they said, this is not about you. And I'm like, okay. And I just laid back down. It wasn't, they didn't even have to put me in a sleep paralysis. I just went back to sleep. That they could have helped me with that, I don't know. But I wasn't fearful or upset like I was when he was a child. So, and for him, he's aware when they come for me, but they do put him in a sleep paralysis when they come for me, because I could see him like he was in a bed across the room in a cabin, and I could see him trying to get up, and they had him where he couldn't. And I understand now why they cannot do that, is because when they come, their time is just as important as our time. They are here. They are coming to get us to teach us things. It is not a social hour, so there is no negotiating, so if they're coming to get me, they don't want me. They want me to listen and learn. And I would be so worried about how my son was feeling. If, is he scared? Is he understand all this? and I wouldn't pay full attention. So they will not. And same for him. He would be worried about, what is my mom thinking? What is my mom feeling? So we understand why we can be where they both come to get us, but we can't go on the same experience.
You
We
brought up
understand that.
You
Yeah.
brought up right now. Maybe you can
I
share with
went,
us what sent you there and why
yes,
were you there, if you don't mind,
yes,
because that's a beautiful story.
yes. Well, what happened is my son was planning a trip, and he was getting his downloads. I was getting my downloads. And he said, Mom, I'm going to go on a trip to Oaxaca. It starts with an O, and I'm probably saying it wrong. Oahaca, which is a southern state on the Pacific side, the lower part of Mexico. We flew into Mexico City and then took a short flight to, I want to say it's called Hutalco, something like that, Hutalco, something like that. So anyway, he was planning on going, and he said, Mom, and I was like, you're kidding me. I've been having downloads about going there too. He goes, Mom, we got to go. And I was like, are you sure? And he was like, yes, Mom. So he and I, we went, just he and I. I have another son, but he doesn't have the same kind of experiences like my oldest son and I do. And, he's had his contacts and he's all familiar with it, but it's not to the degree that we are. So this was just my oldest son and I, and we loaded our things and we went to, it's called San Jose del Pacifico.
Hmm.
And once we got to Hutalco, if I know Hutalca or however you say it,
Oaxaca?
we took a 3-hour ride up into these mountains to see these people called the Zapotecs. And these people are indigenous of Mexico, and their lineage goes back as far as the Mayans and the Incas. And
Hmm.
they're also called the people of the clouds because they live so far up in the mountains. When you get up there and you look down, the clouds are below you, and it's very cold up there. And the first whole part of we were there for 7 days, and the first whole part of the week we were without electricity. And not everybody up there has electricity, but a lot of people do. Uh, there was cell phone use, but it was very splotchy, and not everybody had cell phones. And to find a computer, you had to look around and find a hotspot, but there really wasn't that many. So, and also it was not a tourist area. It was apparent. I don't remember the name of the highway, but there's a highway that runs across this mountain from Mexico City over San Jose de Pacifico all the way over and goes other places. So it's traveled a lot for people to go to Mexico City. So they do get local people that stop up there, but not so much tourists like me. And so English was not spoken there, and there were no ATMs. So, but we had been forewarned by the cabin owners, and they spoke a little bit of English, but they managed to find one person that could help my son, because the Zapotecs, none of them spoke any English at all. So for me, what the interdimensionals wanted was to have, it was teaching me things about where I was. For one, it's the most eco-friendly place I've ever been in my life. The people were so connected with nature. They had an appreciation for plants, flowers, trees, the environment, planet Earth, all these things. And when you look around, everything in their yard was everything they needed. They had their own animals, they had their own trees, grew their own vegetables and plants. And the people all worked together, and they had cisterns where they collected rainwater. And if they did have electricity, it was just for the light. Most of them were doing all their cooking outside. And so it was very, very interesting. And everywhere I looked, everywhere I went, it was so clean, so eco-friendly. And they were actually like sorting out different, waste and things differently to protect the environment. So it was a beautiful thing. But in my son, they wanted him to actually spend time with the Zeppeltex, because the thing they told us in my experience and in his is that they are a dying race. The Zeppeltex are a dying race because their younger generations are more influenced by materialistic things and technology, and pretty much it's only the elders live there now, the elder generation. And so they moved away. So it's a dying race. And they wanted us to see how a beautiful race of people that have such a beautiful appreciation of things, and they were a dying race. So they wanted us to see that. And so my son went out with them and spent a whole day in the, I physically would not be able to do it, but he was out there all day with a backpack hiking around, and they were teaching him how they go through the forest. And when they come across plants and trees, they only take what they need. They don't destroy a whole tree like we do here. We go out, say we need firewood, we just cut the whole tree down, but they look at it differently. They only cut off what they need. And so then with plants and flowers, they would only take what they need. They would never destroy the whole plant. They would just take part of it. Or if they found a family of mushrooms, they would take part of the family, not all of it. They gave everything an opportunity to continue its cycle of life. So that was very, very interesting. And also, what was amazing is that the first night that they took me, they got me outside the cabin, and everything around up on that mountain is dense forest. And when we walked out on our little small ledge, which was very small, they took their hands out like this, and they did like that, and they said, everything is alive. Everything is alive. And I look out through the woods, and I could see trees communicating to each other. I could see plants communicating to each other. All these things are living conscious beings, they said. They're alive and conscious. We just simply can't see it because we are in a 3D realm, but there's life going on all around us. And that doesn't mean it's not there. It's there. And so they showed it to me. And there was a tree that was laughing at me. And I said, why? I asked the interdimensional, why is this tree laughing at me? He said, he's not laughing at you per se. Or he didn't say per se. He said, he's not laughing at you. He's laughing at humans or humanity. And I said, why? And he said, trees provide food for you. Tree provides the homes you live in. Trees provide the air you breathe. Trees provide paper you write on. Trees provide clothes you wear. Trees provide all these different things. And your humans run around chopping them down, have no appreciation of them whatsoever, and don't realize that they're living conscious beings. And so that was profound. And what was even more profound is the day that my son had walked all these miles to get to this, their chief, I guess they called him, or whatever they call their person that's in charge of their tribe or their people. They went to his house, and Chris was standing out there with a little guy he hired to interpret for him. And when the guy walked out, he said, everything's alive. And he turned around and looked at all the woods. That was profound for us because everything was connected, like they said. Even everything about our trip was designed and was put together. They knew we were coming. They had already, they knew that my son was coming even before he got there, even though there was no phone calls or anything. They knew. It was amazing. It was unbelievable.
How did they know?
yeah, it was just profound, and I understand that these things don't mean as much to people to just hear it, but when you experience it is unbelievable. But it changed the way my perception and the way that I look at a lot of things, the way that I look at, we take so many things for granted when we live here in the United States in suburban areas. We forget about indigenous people. We forget about that. We don't even consider that plants and trees, water, air, our planet Earth is a living conscious being. But they explained to me that when we were all created, when we were created, everything on our planet was created. We are all one and we are all connected. We are all one. And that not only that, but we are all connected with the universe, which means all other planets and extraterrestrials and interdimensionals. We are all one. We are all connected. And whatever happens to one living conscious being on this planet will affect all of us. So then they went in to explain to me about us playing with nuclear weapons and why they will never let that happen, and why they came down to indicate that they turn our nuclear power plants on and off. And they explained to me that, not only would it wipe us out as human beings, but it would disturb the balance of our planet. It would disturb our environment, our nature, our trees, all living conscious beings on our planet, our oceans, our coral reefs, our jungles, everything on the planet. And then it would ripple out into space and affect them and other planets, because we're all connected. We're all one, and it's just like we hear about, like, for example, one species of an animal or one species of an insect is dying off. And then all of a sudden we realize, oh my gosh, no more bees, no more honey. Oh my gosh, no more pollination. So there's all kinds of indications and wake up calls that we should have paid better attention to. But we are in this 3D world where materialistic things are so important to everyone. Technology is so important to everyone that we overlook the humanistic values, our values. And that was another thing that they wanted me to understand about seeing the Zapotecs is a race that has a beautiful way of life ending because they made wrong choices. So we're at a point where we're fixing to make the wrong choices if we don't get our act together. And, everybody's scared to death of AI. So they wanted to talk to me about AI. And they told me AI is a man-made tool. Keep it as a man-made tool. And as we reach higher consciousness, we're going through an ascension. Our planet is as well. But as this happens, our perceptions and understandings of the world around us will change. We'll understand the universe more. We'll understand and learn and realize our connections with our planet, everything on it in the universe. And we'll understand that our old ways of living and thinking no longer serve us. We can be better human beings, and we can take AI technology, keep it as a man-made tool. We created it. We stay in control of it, and we make sure that it is handled by all of humanity, not like the technology in our past where groups of elites, multi-millionaire billionaires were in control, and they actually control our governments and actually put who they want in office. And we are manipulated and controlled, and so are they, to to serve the higher up elites. And they do this intentionally for two reasons. They want to keep humanity dumbed down. If we stay at the level of consciousness that we're at, they stay in control and continue making those bucks. Okay? They cannot make money off of healthy, intelligent individuals. But unfortunately, we're at an evolutionary step. This is going to happen. They are pulling every little card they can to try to slow this process down. But be as it may, the extraterrestrials and interdimensionals have come around our planet in great numbers, all races, many, many races. And they're putting in frequencies of love, pure love thoughts, trying to help us what they can. They cannot fix everything for us. We humans are here on Earth on free will. So there's cosmic laws and boundaries they cannot overstep to interfere. We made our mistakes. We have to fix them. So they're not here to fix everything for us. They're here to assist us and help us make wiser choices in our futures with our technology and new ways of thinking and living to improve and give us longer lifespans, because we should not be taking pharmaceutical drugs. Those are synthetic. From what they told me, everything we ever needed to sustain us throughout our life was put here on this planet in form of plant or animal or tree, whatever. Everything we need is here. But they've been sitting on this technology, keeping it to themselves, because it's a way of them controlling our population. They can control our population if we die off at an early age and if we never ascend up into higher levels of consciousness. They want these things to change. They want to see us become the human beings that we were created to be. We should have longer, happier lives. We shouldn't be working these crazy, crazy hours of 9 to 5. We should be working we should be enjoying our families more. We all chose to be here on Earth, whether we remember it or not. And we need to be able to enjoy our experience and not be a slave to a program that we've been dealt with. And I'm talking, this goes way back, generations of where humanity has been controlled for a very, very long time. So that was amazing. That's what I got out of going to Mexico.
Wow.
I'm ready to move.
Nancy, I was in Egypt not too long ago, maybe last summer I was in Egypt, and they had like all these remedies. Like if you had a headache or a stomach ache, use this, or if you had, something else wrong with you, use this, or like they already knew how Mother Nature can help us. And I feel like I need to tell you this. Thich Nhat Hanh, Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, Buddhist monk, wrote a beautiful book, and it would massage your heart because you're in harmony with what he's saying. I think you would really like this book. It's called A Love Letter to Earth by Thich Nhat Hanh. And in that book, he talks about the further away we move from nature, the sicker we become.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what you're saying. And Marianne Williamson says, we need to have a revolution of consciousness in order to create change. And that starts with our hearts, and
it does. So I think what I like to tell people is forget what the world has created you to be. Look within. What I do, I ask my subconscious to open up into my human consciousness and help me to understand who I truly am and my purpose here on Earth. Help me to remember these things. And I think that as we go through this evolutionary stage, a lot of people are going to experience what I experienced with Kundalini awakening, and we're going to start to understand things. Our perceptions are going to change. Our awareness is going to change. We are going to we only use 5 senses now. These things are going to change. But the beautiful part it is, and the way they showed me visions of it, it will not happen overnight. Like it won't be such a drastic thing like night and day. It will be just like our creation, a very slow, beautiful process so that it doesn't overwhelm our brain, so that everyone feels, when I say everyone, I mean the whole world, so that all human beings will feel a part of it because they are a part of it. And that's why I think humanity, we are the disclosure, understanding who we are, our uniqueness.
Mhm.
And there's so many things when we leave this human vessel, our lives are not over. It is in this body, but our soul and consciousness goes on and is basically immortal, you know. So we have so many things to be proud of and things to look forward to. And we shouldn't be enjoying our lives here. And from what I understand and the visions they've showed me, that if we do this correctly and we can use AI to, it won't take away jobs, it will create new jobs for humanity that we will love. We will not even call them jobs anymore. We'll call it service to self, my gift to myself, or my gift for my family. And it will be jobs that don't take you away from your family so much,
Mm.
because that's something that we're missing out on. By the time we get to the age of retirement, a lot of people are unhealthy and die. They didn't get to enjoy their family. These things need to change, and we can do these things, but it's going to take a new way of thinking and a new way of living. And we are going through an evolutionary stage. And what I tell people is just like what they tell me: be patient, let the evolution run its course. It will not happen like that. It has to be done in a fashion that doesn't overwhelm all humans, because we're all just as important. We're all the same, and we're all connected. We're all energy beings, and nobody's better than the other one. We're just simply energy beings in a human vessel. So once we realize these things, we will eventually become more positive and more become united. And the beautiful thing about us coming together and being united, we're unstoppable.
Mm.
We will be unstoppable, and we will be welcomed into the cosmic realm. And very, very, there, I mean, they are our whole planet, from what the visions they show me, our earth, every living creature on our planet has been waiting for humanity to wake up and understand these connections. The universe, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, even the creator source, they all have been waiting for us to reach this intellectual level. And we're finally getting there. We're crawling into it, and it's happening. I can see it happening. And they are just thrilled. They are thrilled. And we will finally all be one again. It's
I
a
pre-
beautiful thing.
yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. And as you're talking, I'm picturing a flower opening up slowly. And that's the
Yeah,
flowering of consciousness collectively that's happening. And it's little
yeah,
by little, we got to be patient,
it
right?
is.
And
And then, like, people ask me time frames. What kind of time frame? In extraterrestrial interdimensional reality, there is no such thing as time. Everything's happening. Everything's happening all at once. The here, the now, the where, whatever. It's all happening. So I can't give time frames because a lot of it has to do with humanity. And all we can do is work on ourselves individually as being better human beings and becoming more positive. And then from that, work on our family. And from that, work on our friends. And keeping in mind that everybody's on their own spiritual path. You cannot force people to change. It has to be done organically within themselves. So, but that doesn't mean that we don't try, you know. And as long as we're making these efforts in interdimensional extraterrestrial eyes, as long as we're working towards it and it's heading that way, they will be able to assist us. And, you know, but as it is right now in this negative realm that we live in, everything around us is negative news. You know, everything has been done to keep us in division and separated, because these elites know once we all get together and unite, they have no more control, because we are huge in number if we can get it, all of us together and being on the same level of positive thinking and wanting world peace, wanting world love, and these things, they know they can't, they won't be able to stop this. And it's what's going to happen. I don't know how long, but it will happen. But I just think that, we have everything in the world to look forward to. We all made a choice to be here at this time. We may not remember it right now because as part of being a human is they erase our memories. But we made it. We all chose to be here. We are all a part of this. And that's why I keep saying we are the disclosure. It doesn't matter what the government tells us. When we finally get by the time we get to the end of this, reaching this new dimensions, we'll already know all this stuff ourselves. We won't need any government to tell us anything because we will know.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you did work for the government, didn't you?
I did.
Wow.
I did. I worked for the Department of Defense. I was a civilian worker in dentistry, and I absolutely loved it. And I don't think that they knew about my experiences, but I do know that the interdimensionals and the extraterrestrials most likely instigated all that for me because they wanted me to know what that world was like. And they wanted me to also experience. What I did was I worked with soldiers, getting them ready to prepare for war. They had to be physically fit because once they get deployed in Afghanistan or wherever, they're there for a 2-year stint and they have to have all of their medical and dental immediate stuff done so that there's no flare-ups, because who knows how long it'll be before they could get, the attention they need. So I was working in that type of facility with soldiers. And also I was privileged to seeing 3D imaging in the dental profession. And it was for root canals, endodontology, so endodontology rather, and endodontist, whatever you want to call it. So in that, for endodontists, when they take their x-rays, it has changed. And in medical facilities that have this technology, it has changed. When you take normal x-rays, like I've been around here where I live and they still do it the old timey way. The bone is here and they take the x-ray and they face it either on the front or the back or on the angle or on the side. But when you're doing 3D, it can literally go down within a tooth or within a bone, and it takes a picture of every single thing, every little hole, every little scratch, nick, scar, everything shows up. So when I got back from my trip from Mexico, that's the same time that they were having the congressional hearings in Mexico, where this famous researcher down there that a lot of people think he's a scam artist, unfortunately, and they didn't believe anything that he presented at the Mexican congressional hearings. But for me, I was watching it, and when they said they had 3D imaging of those mummies, mummies from Peru, I ding, ding, ding with my head. And I was like, oh boy, I want to see these x-rays because you cannot cheat those x-rays. If they had put children's bones or chicken bones or any animal bones, bird bones, anything, it would stand out like a sore thumb. Those x-rays were real. So, I was privileged to this knowledge because of being around that technology from working there. So I feel like everything in my life, good or bad, the interdimensionals wanted me to experience it. I've lived in a lot of different countries and a lot of different things and been around I've always had a fascination with cultures, really seeing the cultures, understanding what their religion or all these things. So they wanted me to experience these things. And because of me being an incarnate from them, everything I see, they see. What better way for them to truly know what it is for a human being here on earth than to send their own incarnates? And that's why I'm here.
Yeah, thank you. Use the term interdimensional and extraterrestrial Maybe you can share someone that may never have even heard about these terms before.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help expand on that, what that means.
Well, interdimensionals are outside of our realm. Dimensions are not physical places. Dimensions are higher levels of consciousness. In our dimension, in our 3D world, we have our five senses, and that's what we use to see and understand our world around us. They live beyond these realms in a higher dimension. So they are in our skies, all over our skies, and they are all over our solar system, but we simply cannot see it because it is beyond our visual scope. But they can see us, and they can come in and out of that. Extraterrestrials are in a higher dimensional than us, but they are not considered interdimensionals because the interdimensionals are even further higher consciousness. So these things are not physical places, but they could be considered like an onion layers on top of each other. Like, for example, I know this for a fact. They could be in the room right here with me right now. They could be in the room with you right now, and they could be invisible, and they can materialize if they want to, but they could be here, and there could be like all this other stuff going on, but we don't see it. It's just like we don't see the plants talking and communicating. So it's the same thing, but they have validated this with me by showing me like I have a clock that runs on batteries. It's not plugged in. And sometimes they want me to know that they're here, and they'll go to the clock and they'll move the hand around 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or, stop and then go 4 o'clock. And I'm like, are you here? And they'll do it around again, 4 o'clock. So they do these things. And these are not things to impress anyone or me. They're just I'm here for a purpose and a reason. So they do these things with me because I needed that validation. I needed that affirmation to make me walk out and do what I'm doing today. They had to push me to make me who I am today. So I'm confident in what I say. And I'm speaking from my heart. I love them. They are beautiful and loving. They only want good things for us. And for me to be able to do that, they knew I had to experience these things firsthand. And so they're not here to impress us. They're here to help us. We have to be worldwide ready, not just certain people or just a percentage. It has to be a worldwide awakening, and that's the process that's going on. And they've been waiting all this time for us to get to this point. This is a big deal for them, and it's a big deal for us. And we're just now figuring it out. But they've been waiting on this for a very long time.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
they knew this was going to happen. Our governments, I know that they have to know this is happening. So people are saying, for example, why would they start all this disclosure and then all of a sudden it stopped? A couple of reasons. For one, they know they have some indications from listening to people like me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, that they know that these things are happening. So why would they come out now? We're already in a war, and admit that they know certain things, and also admit to other countries our vulnerabilities. So there's certain things for that reason why they came. And they're also hoping that the James Webb Telescope will find life out there. And then that will be their scapegoat, so to speak, and give them a reason to not say anything, because hopefully the James Webb Telescope will find something and say, hey, there's life out there, and that would be enough affirmation. And that also gives our government more time, because if they know what I know, and I feel like they do, why would they come out and knowing that the world's not quite at that level of consciousness? Why rock the boat now when right around the corner evolution is going to run its course? all they got to do is be patient, like they tell me, and things will take care of itself, because everything is done in a beautiful intentional design to take care of humanity. And we have to understand whatever has happened and decisions were made in our past by governments, bad or good, and there was a lot of bad. We don't have to forget about them, but we do have to learn from these mistakes. And it's like I said earlier, with our intelligence, it's what we do from this day forward with this intelligence is what's most important. So we need to be a forgiving nation, not a forgetting nation, a forgiving nation. We remember what it was like before. We don't want to go back there. We don't want to go backwards. But we can't live in the past. It's time for us to move on into our new futures and create better lives and become better human beings. So, I feel like they're waiting for evolution to do its job. I would. That's what I'm doing. And that's why I'm not going to sit and argue with people, because how they feel right now and their perception of things is going to change. And I just have to do my part and work on me and what I can. And when people are ready, they'll come to me and they'll come to you, whoever. Listen, if they want to do this, the same thing will happen. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to ask you a two-part question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Have they ever told you what's their definition, or how do they describe what we call God or source to you? And how do they feel about religion on Earth?
They don't have religions. That is man-made. Those are man-made. And that was a tool that divided humanity, because everybody thinks their religion is the religion. Everybody thinks that either you're going to hell if you're not in theirs. Now, what pure creator source would have these things? No. It's, there is no negativity. The higher you get in evolution and in the cosmic and higher realms, there is no negativity. There is no division. There is no fear. There is no, oh my gosh, there's so many things that's going to change. So to answer your question, their religions are man-made and they are not real. But they believe in a creator source. And that is the closest definition to what we call God down here. But the creator source, there is no evil. He doesn't put beings in fear or whatever. That our Bible was written by men. That was their perception at their time in history when they wrote it. Then it was changed many, many other times for kingdoms and nations to serve their narrative and agendas. So when we wake up, we are going to realize all these things and understand there is a creator source that is the creator of all galaxies, all universes. And it is non-physical, and it is of the supreme highest consciousness ever. And there's more dimensions than we know of. We only know of 12, but there's many, many more. And there are angelic realms, and there are certain things like that. I don't know a lot. I mean, I told you earlier, I don't know everything, and I don't ask a lot of questions like people like, why don't you take pictures? Why don't you ask this? Why don't you ask that? But what you have to understand, when this is happening to somebody like me, every moment is a blessing to me. And I'm so in awe of everything I see and experience. And I have so much love and respect. I would never, ever, if they want to be seen, they'll do it themselves. It's not my place. It's not my place. And I'm not here to impress. They're not here to impress. I am what I am. And I'm not making any money off doing any of this. And neither are they. It's just not the way the universe works. So, and I understand people just have to reach their own spiritual level and evolve into this. And I know not everybody will believe everything I say, and that's okay. That's okay. People should do their own research and do their own thinking. That's part of our evolution.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. You grew up in the Bible Belt. How is your message taken these days What you have to say.
It's becoming more, people are more, I mean, they're aware of all this stuff going on in our world. They can see that our world is changing. There are some that strictly stick to the demonic type things, and I just simply stop. I don't discuss it with, I've even been, I was going to physical therapy for a little while, and my physical therapist said, "So you do podcasts about extraterrestrials and interdimensionals?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "They're demonic, don't you?" And I was like, "I don't believe that, and we'll just leave it at that." So that's just part of this. And I knew, and they've always told me I would know when it was the right time, because this has been happening to me all my life, but it wasn't the right time. And I feel like there's been generations ahead of me and my family that had these experiences, but it was not the right time.
Wow.
Like your parents, think about their life, and what if they had come out and said what I'm saying, it would not have been very well received, So I guess there's proof that there's a time and place for everything. And I just absolutely, all of a sudden I knew it was time. And I created the Facebook page, Time for Disclosure, and started working with that. And then it got to the point where I was just, well, after they gave me the Kundalini awakening, I knew that was it. They were ready for me to, and I was mentally ready at that point. I mean, it gave me the drive and the confidence, because all these things I knew and know, and new things that I receive all the time, because I don't know everything. I mean, I have a human brain. You can only handle so much at an interval. So I finally felt confident enough and understood that and they proved to me that they're very aware of everything I do. And there was if you don't mind, I don't know how much time you have. Do I have time to share something with you
Sure.
that they did for me?
Sure.
I went to a group of women in this area, and they were all mental therapists. And my thoughts were, and I still believe this, as we go through our ascension, more people are going to start to wake up or remember certain dreams or remember certain experiences. Our brains may become unblocked. Things that was protecting us may start to surface. And so I was expressing that I felt like that they should prepare themselves and get knowledgeable with not only extraterrestrial experiencers, contactees, abductees, but even the paranormal, because all these realms are going to people are going to become more aware and see more with our awareness. And because there are organizations that are setting up to give support to all these different people on all levels of their perception. They're ready. There's UAP Medical Coalition. There is TESA, TESA, which is the abbreviation for support for experiencers and paranormal experiencers. And then there's capital OPUS, OPUS, which is for extraterrestrials and people that with paranormal experiences that have the negative effects in it. They can't cope. So not only do they have meetups and places for people to exchange information and forums for them to chat and share, and it's a safe place. And I do that on my website, by the way. But anyway, so I felt like these need to be done. And so, I had this bright idea of trying to do this locally, and I even thought about doing something at a local library, but I think it's a little too soon for that. But I did go talk to these mental therapists, and they were, from what I saw, they were very open. And, and this was right after we had all these congressional hearings. So it was right on everybody's mind. So it was a good time. It was probably instigated by the extraterrestrials and interdimensionals. But anyway, I was riding home through the countryside. I like to ride through the countryside and just get myself back in nature. Don't just go the city route. I was taking the back ways, and I ended up riding through an Amish community, and they're very primitive. They have no electricity. Their children, they don't have any TVs. They don't have anything. I'm sure you're familiar, but they're very primitive type lifestyle. So I was riding through there, and it was a hot time of day, and they were all inside, but their vegetation and flowers and all these things they were growing were so beautiful. And I was looking at it, and then all of a sudden I had a thought in my head, I don't know what I was doing going to talk to these mental therapists about extraterrestrials and interdimensional. They could easily get together and recommend that I be sent to treatment myself. And I was sitting here thinking that, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I started to kind of feel a little fearful, like, what have I done? And all of a sudden, telepathically, they said, look to your left. And I looked to my left. There was a UFO or disc sitting there in their field.
Wow.
Yes. I just started crying because that was not meant for the world. That was meant for me. That was my reward. Them giving me the affirmation that they knew and they were proud of me for taking that step even further and talking to the mental health field about this, and not caring how I was judged, although I was. You know what I'm saying? But to get me out there to do it, I walked in with confidence, and it was after the fact that I started like, whoa, I wonder what the repercussion of this, that kind of thing. But there it was, a beautiful disc, and it was just a silver disc, nothing flashy, no lights, no writings, no symbols on it, just a silver disc sitting there. And I just went on with my business, and I did not stop and take a picture. No, I did not do anything because I understood what it was for. I knew it was just simply there to let me know that they were proud of what I did. And that was all I needed. It was awesome. Amazing.
Did anyone else see it?
I don't think so. There was another person in the car, and that's another reason why I didn't stop. But I was just giving somebody a lift from the place. They were not, I don't think they were, I don't know. I don't know how it would affect them, but I knew it was for me. So I didn't say anything.
Yeah. Thank you.
But yeah, it was a perfect spot too, in an Amish community, so it was amazing. So, and I feel like just as they have done with me, they will do that with humanity once we get to a certain level or certain frequency. When we raise our frequencies and get to a certain level, they will be more active around for us to see. But we're not all together on the same boat yet, so to speak. We're not all there quite yet. But when we get there, they will, because they're very proud of us. And we are, I think the world is already more open to these topics. And, we do have some strange things going on. This has been a very interesting year with the eclipse and weather-wise, very interesting year. So I don't know. I think it's going to get more interesting as we get further and further down to our process of evolution, ascension, disclosure, all these things. They're all happening at one time for a reason. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions before we go, because I know we're running out of time. But experiencing the Kundalini, having this Kundalini awakening, and having this experiencing unity consciousness, how ignorant is it for people to be stuck in racism? Now that you can look at it.
How ignorant is what now?
Racism. When you experience unity consciousness, understanding the oneness of life.
It is so, it blows my mind, because we are all energy beings. We are all the same. And see, I think that was done intentionally. I think it was done intentionally, and the intention to keep us separated, division, always keeping negative areas in our lives. And then, from that negativity, it's swirled into really horrific things. But I think the foundation of it was done intentional for that reason.
Mm.
And that the more that they keep us in that realm, we'll never achieve any higher. We'll always be in a warlike, negative, poverty, disease world. We have to change. We have to, or we will wipe ourselves out.
Yeah, thank you. And what's the purpose of life for you?
Well, life is a beautiful and it's a gift. It's a blessing. So we all chose to have this human experience. And so what I've done, a way I see it is that I don't look at the negative things in life. I look at all the beautiful things, because this is a very short existence, the human experience, compared to any other existence throughout the universe or galaxies. Because when we leave this planet, our soul and our consciousness leave. This vessel stays here. But then we have choices. We have choices. Our life is not over. We start a new one. And we can, if we have experienced all that we had planned for here, we can move on and experience being a dolphin or an extraterrestrial or interdimensional or a rock or, whatever. Or we can come back and be a human again. Depends. There's things that we decided before coming here that we're not privileged to know about. But I think once we get into these higher realms of consciousness, those things will start to change. It will be more aware of incarnation and all these things. It'll be more accepted. But it's beautiful. I see the beautiful things, and I think we'll all start being better human beings, and we'll start seeing the beautiful things in life. And you know how people sometimes, I've heard this over and over again, you can create your own reality. I think that's true in a sense, because when you start seeing only the beautiful things and you don't dwell on the negative things, not that they're not there, but you replace your thoughts. You train your thoughts to see beautiful things. That starts creating the world around us. It creates who we are. And that's what keeps us happy, mentally healthy, takes away people with depression, people with diseases, takes away these things by changing our mental state, because our brains are a lot more in control of our physical body than we realize. So we've got a lot to learn, and it will never end. There'll always be something, but it's amazing. I think I see it as a beautiful thing. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life.
That's awesome.
When I was 30 years old and just thought that I was going to end up under the ground and throw dirt on me, I thought that was horrendous, horrible. Like I always thought, what? This is it? This is it? And I was like, I knew that there was something not right. And I wasn't happy. No, I was not a fully happy person at all. Now I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. And I think that, I don't have the fears that I had before about death. I understand. Yes, we miss our loved ones. Yes, we do. But that's our own personal. That's what we will miss. They're not missing anything. They're creating and having a new life and a new beginning, So I think it's wonderful. And I love being who I am now. 20, 30 years ago, no, I wouldn't have said that. But now that I'm understanding these things, it's wonderful. It really is.
Yeah, thank you. And I totally agree with you. We create reality, and we
I
see
think so.
reality through the screen of our thinking, not just as individuals, but at a collective level as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally agree with you. And I don't know if anyone ever called you a hope dealer. Have they?
A what?
A hope dealer.
A hope dealer?
Yeah, you're
No,
definitely
nobody has.
a hope dealer. And I don't know if you know the acronym of HOPE. It's to help other people evolve. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and
Well,
thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
I really would like to have a different word to call myself, because I find that experiencers and contactees, a lot of people think that just by sitting at a C5 event, they consider themselves a contactee. And what I feel and what I believe is so more, I mean, they are my family. They are my family. I love them. And I every night I ask them to more, because they're my family, and I know that. And they're all of our family. But the world has got to wake up and remember these things. But a hope dealer, I'll have to tell my son that.
Help other people evolve, because that's what you're doing. So thank you. How do we find you? Maybe your links.
Oh, well, I'm always, I have a Facebook group. It's called Time for Disclosure / We Have Never Been Alone / We Are the Disclosure, because I truly believe that humanity is the disclosure. And my website is timefordisclosure.com. So yeah, I have forums on each one, and there's of course ways that you can email me on each one. So yeah, I'd love to. And I belong to a lot of different groups, so I'm easy to find on Facebook.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I know you know this quote, and I'm going to end it with this quote by Ronald Reagan. And he says, "Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond." I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from the outside this world. But thank you for coming on and helping us understand and remember our unity consciousness. I really do.
Yes.
Not just in this planet, but beyond. So thank you. And it really meant a lot. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I would love to have you on again, because there's so much more to talk to you about.
Oh, yeah. There's plenty more I could tell you.
Yeah, I bet. Thanks, Nancy. Namaste.
All righty. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Just know we out here. Know we out here working in a major way. Had to speak on it just to make a play. Any given subject, know we make a way. Time to level up on a day-to-day. Know we out here working for the greater good. Expand your mind, broaden your lens the way you should. From the stars to the galaxy to speak on spirituality. Higher understanding for the neighborhood.